The first time I noticed Harper wasn't wearing her ring, it was a Tuesday. Not a dramatic day. Not our anniversary. Just Tuesday. I had made her coffee. Black, 2 sugars, same as always. Left it by the window like I always did, because that's where she liked to sit and scroll through her morning chaos. She didn't touch it. Didn't even look at it. She walked past, phone to her ear, boots clicking like she wasn't home anymore. She didn't say goodbye. That was the last full day I remember her living in the same world as me. I didn't suspect anything yet, not really. We had grown distant, yeah. That happens sometimes. We were both tired a lot, both had our own stress. But we were solid. Or so I thought. I didn't see the cracks because I was too busy filling them. Then came the Friday. She texted at 5:04 p.m. Going to Lacey's for the weekend. Need air. No kiss emoji. No, love you. Just air. I didn't reply. I just stared at the message. The air around me vanished. It wasn't just cold, it felt intentional. That was the night I opened a bottle of wine alone, for the first time in our marriage. By Sunday afternoon, no update. So I called. No answer. By Monday morning, the ring she wasn't wearing turned into a question she wouldn't answer. She came home looking different. Not in the way people change their style, but in the way someone carries themselves after they've done something irreversible. Her eyes didn't avoid me. They went through me. She unpacked nothing. Just walked in, took a long shower, and went to sleep early. I didn't ask. I couldn't. Because something in me already knew. That weekend wasn't about air. That weekend was a door slamming shut behind me while she walked barefoot into another life. It got worse fast. The next few weeks were filled with secrets disguised as smiles. She worked late but never looked tired. She dressed up for the grocery store. Her phone was always face down. The smell of someone else's cologne started trailing in on her coat. Faint, but not mine. I knew better than to ask. She would have made me feel insane for even noticing. And then, one night, she said it. We were sitting on opposite sides of the couch. She muted the TV, looked at me with eyes I'd never seen before. Cold. Purposeful. I think I want something different, she said. I want freedom. I thought she meant freedom from stress. Maybe a break. A pause. But no. She meant freedom from me. That night, she didn't sleep at home. And I didn't sleep at all. That was the night I realized she had already left, long before she ever said it out loud. And the worst part? I let her go without a single argument. Without begging. Without trying to fix it. Because deep down, something darker was already growing in me. Not anger. Not pain. Just silence. But silence is never empty. It's just a space waiting to be filled. And I was about to fill it with something she never saw coming. Because while she was celebrating her newfound freedom, I had just started waking up. The house didn't change overnight. That was the most disorienting part. Her toothbrush was still next to mine. The boots I bought her last Christmas still stood by the door. Her perfume still lingered on the hallway towels. From the outside, it probably looked like we were just another couple navigating a rough patch. But inside, I could feel it. The decay was quiet, but total. She didn't pack bags. She packed distance. Conversations turned into updates. There's food in the fridge. I'm working late. Lacey's calling me. I'll be out on the patio. No emotion. Just notifications. She didn't ask about my day anymore. Didn't notice when I shaved my beard or when I stopped sleeping. She never looked at me. Not really. Only past me, like I was part of the furniture. I started feeling like a ghost in my own home. And then, on a Wednesday morning, I saw it. She had left her laptop open, a mistake she hadn't made in months. I wasn't looking for anything. Truly. I had already made peace with the silence between us. But I had to email myself something for work, and the tab was already open. Messages. Not her email. Not social media. A private chat app one didn't recognize. And one thread stood out. He's still here. Yeah, he just doesn't get it. But soon. I hate sneaking around. But you're worth it. I know. I love you. That last one was from her. And that was the moment something in me snapped, not in rage, but in cold, detached understanding. This wasn't about a bad face. This wasn't about needing space. This was about a carefully orchestrated exit. A life being built while mine was being dismantled behind my back. Quietly. Deliberately. Cruelly. She had already decided that I was the old version of her life, the outdated chapter she'd skimmed past. And now she was rewriting herself. Without me. I didn't say anything that night. Or the next. I pretended not to know. I cooked her dinner. I asked how her day was. I kissed her cheek when she left the room. Because I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to plead. I wasn't going to beg for clarity from someone who had already chosen confusion. Instead, I began writing my own plan. Not revenge. Not chaos. Just an ending she wouldn't see coming. I changed my banking passwords. Opened a private account. Got a P.O. box across town. I started walking every night, not to clear my head, but to map out what I was about to do. I found a new apartment under a different name. I contacted an old friend, a lawyer who owed me a favor. I didn't ask for war. Just a clean, quiet escape route. Then, a week later, she came home late again. Too late. Hair messy. Shirt buttoned wrong. She didn't even pretend anymore. She dropped her purse, poured herself a glass of wine, and said without turning around, "We need to talk." I looked at her for the first time in weeks. Really looked. And for the first time since all of this began. I didn't feel pain. I felt free. "Yeah," I said. "We do." She said, "We need to talk," but she didn't sit down. She leaned against the counter like a stranger waiting for Uber. Hair damp from the rain, mascara slightly smudged. Her phone buzzed twice. She ignored it. I already knew what she wanted to say, but I wanted to hear how she'd dress it up. She took a sip of wine. Her nails tapped against the glass. No eye contact. "Travis," she finally said, "I think we both know this isn't working anymore." I didn't respond. I just reached behind me slow, calm, and slid a small stack of 3 white envelopes across the kitchen table. She blinked. "What's this?" "Start with the top one," I said. Her hand hovered for a second before picking it up. Envelope 1. Inside, a printed screenshot, grainy, low resolution, time-stamped. Her. Kissing a man in a parking lot outside a rooftop bar. His hand was on her lower back. She stared at it, expression unreadable. "That's from 2 Thursdays ago," I said, softly. "After your girls' night. Funny thing, I was parked across the street." She opened her mouth but closed it again. I didn't blink. "Second envelope," I said. She slid the first aside like it was nothing, but her hand trembled slightly as she opened the next. Envelope 2. A single sheet. Bank activity logs. My money. Our joint account. 13 unexplained transfers, small enough not to draw attention individually, but together, over $18,000. I ran the numbers, I said, still calm. "You've been moving money for 4 months. Just enough to fund a future without me, but not enough to make me notice." She looked up at me, pale now, like she just realized the lights in the room were no longer under her control. She reached for the last envelope. Envelope 3. It was the thinnest of them all. Just a key inside. No paper. No explanation. She held it up. "What is this?" I stood, finally. "That," I said, "is to the apartment where I live now. I moved out this morning." She stared at me like she didn't understand English. Like the ground had tilted. "But, what?" "You." "I packed while you were out," I said. "I even made the bed after. Didn't want to leave a mess behind." Her voice caught. "You're serious?" I nodded. "Completely." She sank into the chair slowly, the key still between her fingers. For the first time in months, she looked at me, not past me. Not through me. Just at me. You planned this." I nodded again. "The moment you chose freedom, I started choosing peace." And then I walked to the door, opened it, and looked back just once. She was still there, staring at the key like it was some ancient object she didn't know how to use. And in that moment, she wasn't free. She was alone. She didn't call the next day. No messages. Not even a passive-aggressive emoji or some cryptic quote posted online like she used to when she wanted attention without asking for it. Silence. And I knew why. For the first time since all of this began, she had no idea what came next. She had lost the script, and I wasn't handing her a new one. I moved into a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy. White walls, no art. 1 table, 1 chair, 1 bed. Clean. Quiet. No reminders of who I had been in that house. I brought almost nothing with me, just a duffel bag of clothes, my laptop, and a French press I hadn't used in years. Freedom, it turns out, doesn't require a moving truck. For the first time in months, I could hear myself think again. That first week, I didn't do anything dramatic. No big speeches. No posts. I went to work. I walked through new neighborhoods. I read books that had been collecting dust on our old shelf. I cooked dinner and finished it warm. I even started sleeping again. Really sleeping. But I knew her. I knew she wouldn't just let go. Not after realizing the leash had been around her own neck this entire time. On Thursday, I saw her. From the second-floor cafe window, where I sat with a book and black coffee, I watched her car slowly crawl down the block. Same coat. Same sunglasses. Only this time, no confidence in the way she scanned the sidewalk. She wasn't looking for anything in particular, she was hunting for familiarity. Clues. Me. She drove past my building twice. On the third loop, she parked. Sat in the driver's seat for a while. Then got out, crossed the street, and disappeared inside the cafe next door. She was too late. I had already walked out the back. It wasn't about hiding. I wasn't running from her. I just didn't owe her my presence anymore. That was the part she hadn't processed. She thought this was a standoff, that if she showed up, I'd engage. But I had no interest in conversations built on ruins. I didn't need an apology. I didn't want closure. I just wanted distance. The next day, she sent a message. It said, "I miss the way things were." I didn't reply. A few hours later. "Can we just talk? I feel like I don't know where you are." I still didn't answer. Because she wasn't asking to fix anything. She was asking for control again, over me, over the story, over the way her choices would be remembered. She thought I'd eventually break the silence. But silence wasn't my weapon. It was my recovery. And then came the voicemail. Not angry. Not emotional. Just quiet. Hesitant. "Travis. I don't even know if you'll listen to this. I didn't think you'd actually go. I didn't think you had it in you. I thought you'd wait. You always waited. Even when I didn't deserve it." Then a pause. "I'm starting to think I never really knew you." She was right. She didn't. There's something strange about walking past someone you used to know completely, like passing a childhood home after it's been sold. It's still there, but you can't step inside. You don't belong to it anymore. That's what it felt like seeing Harper at my old office building. She hadn't worked anywhere near that area in years, but there she was, standing by the elevators, pretending to check her phone, glancing at each passing face. She didn't expect to see me. She expected to accidentally bump into me. Same Harper, always staging chaos to make it feel like fate. I didn't approach her. I exited through the rear like I had rehearsed. I wasn't interested in accidental reunions or her version of what went wrong. I had built something new, piece by piece, and I wouldn't let her drama stain it. But I knew she was getting desperate. I could feel it in her timing, her indirect moves, the silence between each attempt. She wasn't unraveling publicly. Harper was too proud for that. She was unraveling inwardly, privately, behind high-gloss Instagram posts and breezy texts to mutual friends like nothing had changed. And then she made a mistake. She used the emergency key. The one I never thought she'd keep. I had forgotten to replace the lock at the house, the one she technically left, but still had access to. She must have realized I wasn't staying there anymore. The absence of clutter. No food in the fridge. Clean counters. Nothing personal left in the drawers. Just one envelope. That envelope was for her. I had left it on the kitchen island, unsealed, knowing she'd eventually come looking. Inside it, a single sheet of paper. "This isn't punishment. It's clarity. You left first. I just didn't follow." She didn't call after reading it. Didn't message. For 2 days, nothing. Then, the knock on my apartment door. Not frantic. Not demanding. Just a soft knock. The kind someone uses when they aren't sure they should be there. I stood in the hallway, staring at the door. I didn't open it. Not because I was afraid, but because I didn't need to. Behind that door was the same woman who once told me she needed to be unapologetically free. The one who whispered, "Don't wait up," and came home reeking of secrecy. The one who left her ring off for months before realizing I'd taken mine off too, and never put it back on. She knocked again. Then silence. And then, the sound of her footsteps slowly fading down the hallway. When I finally looked through the peephole, she was already turning the corner, pulling her coat tighter around herself like she suddenly felt the cold for the first time. She had come searching for the man she thought would always be waiting. But I wasn't that man anymore. A week passed. Not a word from Harper. Not a knock. Not a message. Not even a breadcrumb on social media. And yet, I felt her shadow constantly shifting around me, like fog trying to slip under a locked door. I wasn't paranoid, just aware. People like her didn't accept endings unless they were the ones writing the final page. It was late Friday when I received the email. Not from her, from the restaurant. A well-known place across town. They confirmed a dinner reservation, under my name, for 2. For tomorrow night. 7:30 p.m. Table by the window. I hadn't made that reservation, but I knew who had. She was baiting a memory. The restaurant was where we used to celebrate our anniversaries. The same booth where we once sat in silence during our 10th year, pretending not to notice how unfamiliar we'd become. I called the restaurant, asked who made the booking. The hostess hesitated, then read off Harper's name. I thanked her and canceled. No drama, no explanations. But I did show up. Alone. In the parking lot. 7:20 p.m. I waited in my car, headlights off, engine silent. At 7:28, she arrived. Hair curled. Red dress I hadn't seen in years. Her posture was hopeful, expectant, almost childlike. She walked to the hostess stand and gave my name. I saw it all through the glass. The moment they told her the reservation didn't exist. The flicker in her smile. The small laugh she gave, pretending it was some harmless mix-up. But I knew that laugh. It was her shield. She pulled out her phone. No doubt to message me. I didn't let it ring. I powered mine off and drove away without ever being seen. I didn't do it to humiliate her. I did it because the version of me she was still trying to reach, that man, didn't live here anymore. She had built a fantasy in her head. One where time bent backward, where I would be sitting at that table waiting, just grateful she remembered. She imagined I'd smile across the candlelight and say, "I'm glad you came." But all I would have said was, "You came too late." I spent that night walking. No destination. Just silence and cold air. And as I moved through the city, past faces that didn't know me, I realized something powerful. She was trying to return to a version of us that only existed in my memory. And I had already let that version die. Saturday morning, I woke to sunlight cutting across my apartment floor like a blade. No alarm. No urgency. Just silence. The kind I used to beg for when things at home were still loud with tension. I made coffee, folded laundry, checked my email. There was nothing remarkable about the morning, and that's what made it feel sacred. Until 11:42 a.m. That's when the call came, not from Harper. From my old neighbor, the one who still lived across from the house we used to share. "Hey, Travis? Hate to bother you, but there's someone in your old driveway." I knew before she finished the sentence. Harper. I didn't ask questions. I just thanked her and hung up. Then I took my time getting ready. Not out of pettiness. I simply refused to rush for someone who once couldn't be bothered to come home. By the time I pulled up, she was sitting on the porch steps. Knees pulled in, sunglasses on, but not hiding the fact that she hadn't slept. She stood when she saw me, but didn't move closer. Between us, parked squarely in the middle of the driveway, was a small U-Haul trailer. She spoke first. "I brought your things." I didn't say anything. She motioned toward the trailer. "I didn't know what you'd want to keep, so I brought everything. Even the things I thought you didn't care about." She was trying. Not in a manipulative way. Not this time. It felt genuine. Like someone who finally realized the things they broke can't be glued back together. Like someone standing in the ash of something they started burning long ago. "I know I can't fix what happened," she said, "and I know you don't owe me a single thing. But I didn't want to be the one who decides what part of your life you get to keep." I looked at the trailer. She had labeled every box. Books. Winter coats. Tools. Photos. There was even one labeled letters. I hadn't realized she'd saved them, the notes I used to write and leave in her lunch bag, or slip into her suitcase when she traveled. Back then, I believed words could anchor people. I didn't know some people are made of wind. Still, I said nothing. She took off her sunglasses. "I'm not asking for another chance," she said softly. "I just want to leave this chapter without erasing what it meant." I nodded once. Just a small motion, not out of forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. And then I said the first and only words I would say that day. "Leave the key." She pulled it from her jacket pocket and set it on the step. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't wait for a final glance or a dramatic exit. I opened the trailer, took the box labeled letters, and closed it again. Everything else could wait. 2 months later, spring came early. The trees outside my new place had started to bloom, soft bursts of white and pink hanging like secrets from the branches. I just finished repotting a plant I swore I'd kill in a week, but somehow kept alive. Small victories. Quiet ones. The kind no one claps for, but matter more than applause ever could. That evening, I opened the last box. The one labeled letters. I thought it would hurt, but it didn't. I read one, then another. And the third made me smile, not because of what it said, but because of who I was when I wrote it. I remembered that man. Steady. Hopeful. Kind. He hadn't disappeared after all. He'd just gone quiet for a while, waiting for things to stop burning. I didn't keep them all. Some I shredded, letting the pieces fall like snow across the floor. Others I folded neatly and slid into a drawer. Not for nostalgia, just as proof that I could love without regret. The next morning, I went for a run. Same trail I used to jog when I needed clarity. There was something different about it now. Not the trees, not the air, just me. The weight was gone. For the first time in years, I wasn't running away from anything. I was just moving forward. At the coffee shop afterward, a woman at the counter smiled at me. Not in a flirty way. Just simple, human warmth. I smiled back. And it wasn't forced. I sat near the window, sipping black coffee, the way I always had. A little girl ran past outside, chasing a bubble that floated just out of reach. Her dad followed behind, laughing. Not far from where Harper once stood, looking for something she thought she lost. And I realized something. She had wanted freedom, a version of it shaped by impulse and escape. But me? I had found something better. Stillness. Purpose. Peace. It didn't come loud. It came in mornings like this. In a quiet apartment. In being unknown to the world again. In smiling without checking who was watching. I don't hate her. I don't love her either. I'm just free. And this time, it has nothing to do with walking away. It has everything to do with coming home to myself.